They sat alone, far from everybody else, just a mom, a dad, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was stupid, because they were outside. They all live together. They're not near anybody. Dr. Fauci, do you know what happened to that mom and that family? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
But when it comes time to answer questions, he wants to plead the Fifth? Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested.
Having a mask outside makes sense. That's some crazy work. And that couple that got evacuated because they didn't follow the mandate, even though they was away from everybody, still got penalized. And Dr. Fauci has the opportunity to speak up, but he wants to plead the Fifth. Ladies and gentlemen, if you took the jab, it is not the end-all be-all, but man, if the leader that administrated that, we're going to call it the jab, is staying quiet, that is a huge red flag. What's there to stay quiet? As a matter of fact, you should be transparent so the people can have some type of comfort. They can have something to relax on because they don't know what they instilled in their bodies, this unknown substance. But because you are a doctor, they put their trust in you.
Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people. And that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that?
6 years later, he's in the Senate talking smack to Dr. Fauci. I've never heard anyone curse in that position. So, you love to see it, to hold these people accountable because they do so much stuff and we can't do nothing about it because they're up here. You have to be at that same level to talk to them. They're not going to hear your voice when you're down here, ladies and gentlemen. So you love to see it. And Dr. Fauci, he has his back up against the corner. He's talking about, I plead the Fifth. This is not a hearing courtroom. You're not guilty. This is just a meeting where you can be transparent. What are you hiding? There's nothing to hide. You want to give out all these jobs to the whole world, but you can't answer a few questions? Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace.
Stop it. Get some help.
Should the taxpayer fund research where we take an animal virus and mutate it to become a human virus? We basically create a new virus that doesn't exist in nature, and we have the ability to do it. In 2010, they took the bird flu and they replaced 8 genes, made it transmissible through the air, aerosolized it between mammals, and it wasn't before. I think it makes no sense. The bird flu is about 50% deadly. If you make it more transmissible to humans, like what we think happened with COVID-19, it would be a death wish for the world. The reason we don't have a pandemic right now with the bird flu is it doesn't go human to human. We think COVID-19 started out going human to human so quickly is because it was modified in the lab, pre-adapted to go human to human. They do this interestingly with mice that have human lungs. They created mice that are basically human when the virus looks at the lung cells, and they just culture this thing over and over. It's called serial passage until they get a virus that can infect humans, and it's a terrible thing, and Fauci knew all along what they were doing. He says, we suspect they might have manipulated because we know they do gain of function research. But then in public he says, oh, it came from nature, and that if you think otherwise, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Allege Dr. Fauci manipulated the whole C9, the whole thing. We're gonna have to keep it YouTube friendly. But then when it comes time to answer questions, he wants to plead the Fifth. So this was a experiment to see what is going to happen when you release this into the masses. That was just a placebo. That was just a trial and error. I believe they want to control us now more than ever. And after 2020, the energy shifted. Jobs got shut down. People applying for PPP loans just to survive. People, unfortunately, are no longer here breathing. Something that was man-made? Out of the expense of research, out of the expense of control, the next person's life is at stake. All for research, all for the bottleneck effect. Stop the cap, Dr. Fauci. Now, I know you have 50 years of experience, but the back end of your career, I don't know who, we know who. Let's stop the cap, Dr. Fauci. I mean, we know who you work for. But I don't think he's going to get penalized. If he was sent from the higher-ups to do what he did, allegedly, how is he going to get in trouble now unless he did something behind their back to make them mad? And now they're leaving him, turning their back towards Dr. Fauci to where they're not going to help him anymore. But this is all a charade. Dr. Fauci, I don't think is going to be held accountable. I like that he has his feet and hands against the fire and they trying to hold him accountable. Let's keep it a stack, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing's going to happen. It's just going to be he say, she say, until we can actually accuse with factual evidence that Dr. Fauci manipulated the jab to the masses. That might be the greatest allegation of all time, because this is not just one victim. This is worldwide. People's lives was at stake because of the expense of research. Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Okay.
Okay.
Like
Gotta
that.
love that guy.
Okay.
Like that absolute coward, Tony Fauci. Absolute coward.
Yeah.
Hey, it's back,
Are
baby.
you kidding me?
Yeah. 111
You got a
times.
pardon and you're in front and you pleaded over 100 times
Yeah.
at the White House? What are you scared of, Tony?
Yeah.
I thought you were the science.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were I am science, and you get up there and you can't answer a question?
Yeah.
What are we
it,
doing?
baby.
And how much time did the network spend at that? How much time did they spend on my responses every week, on my vaccination status, on Taylor and Travis's wedding?
Yeah!
Did they do even a minute? Did they do even a minute on Tony Fauci?
Aaron Rodgers is one of the few in the NFL that refused to take the jab, and he was getting ridiculed because everybody was taking a jab and they was trying to make it seem like he was selfish, that he doesn't care about the league, that he only cares about himself, because if he gets sick, he is a liability, because now everybody's at risk of getting sick. All that pressure was on Aaron Rodgers' back, but he kept it 10 toes down and didn't fold. Same thing with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving became blackballed. It became so much so to where he had to leave a whole city where he resonated in Brooklyn, playing for the Brooklyn Nets. He had to move around to Dallas because he didn't want to take the job. It became so bad, ladies and gentlemen. Kyrie Irving in the NBA couldn't play home games. He could only play away games because in New York, they had a mandate to where you had to have the jab, and Kyrie Irving didn't take the jab. And now, 6 years later, Stephen A. Smith wants to go on his podcast apologizing to Mr. Irving. But in reality, he should have apologized on the main platform, ESPN, but he wants to apologize on his YouTube channel. Stop the cap, ladies and gentlemen. What I take from this, go by your gut instinct. Don't listen to what the next person says. Of course, do your research and find out the truth for yourself. But because your job is on the line, peer pressure, I understand bills is knocking at the door. Don't inject something inside your body that you don't know, a foreign substance in your body, just because you want to pay some bills. There's all type of ways to make money. If you got to get your hands dirty and sweat underneath the sun, it is what it is. But you can rest assured that you don't have some type of foreign substance in your body. And Dr. Fauci talking about he pleads the fifth over 100 times, that doesn't reassure you that everything's going to be okay. I hope everything's going to be okay. But we will find out here when time passes. If you have made it to this point of the video, let me know your take in the comment section. Is Dr. Fauci, is he going to be held accountable, or is this just another case where it's going to be swept underneath the rug?
Here's the evidence for that. Directly written by Anthony Fauci in his diary, the COVID virus was acting like a bad influenza in its transmissibility, and that the case fatality rate was more like 0.2%. 0.2% rather than 2%. So he knew that the fatality rate was extremely low. And what is the fatality rate of the flu? Well, that is 1%. So it is extremely close. The flu is 0.1%. COVID is 0.2%.
Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. What does the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution say?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
No, I'm just asking you what it says.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. The NIH for over 54 years, 38 of those as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Over that period, I proved that I believe in and respect the value of legitimate congressional oversight. In fact, I testified before and or briefed Senate and House Senate and House committees well over 200 times over those 38 years. During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews, answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing. However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Fauci, did you ever delete an official record?
No.
Dr. Fauci, did you ever conduct official business via email?
To the best of my recollection and knowledge, I have never conducted official business via my private email.
Your conduct concerning federal records raises further questions. It is a crime to destroy federal records, yet our investigation reveals your assistant diligently reported that she deleted tons of emails. In 2024, you testified that you did not delete federal records. Who's telling the truth, you or your assistant? The committee has obtained repeated instructions from you telling federal officials to delete communications